everyone. Welcome to episode 30, Triple Achies, here at PopCultX. So good to be back with you guys. We're so happy to have you joining us today, yesterday, tomorrow. And yeah, so make sure you follow us, subscribe, just, go attack our social media. Not attack, but go gently console it and make it feel better. I don't know. I'm your host, Daniel, and with me always, of course, is Gabriel. And yeah, so how has your week been, Gabe, since we last talked?
It's been really busy. Been, watching some television, some movies, listening to some cool music. I haven't really, I'm trying to think of if there were any standouts when it came to any shows that I've been watching or movies. I haven't really been able to sit down and watch anything really good. I tend to watch things to just help me relax that I've seen multiple times. So nothing really new or newsworthy for me. Anything that you've watched recently that is new? And
yeah, I saw one cool thing, but before I talk about that, just something that you just said, that you tend to watch things that comfort you. So the things that you've seen a lot. And I tend to follow in that pattern where there's so many new stuff that I want to go watch, but I end up watching a show or a movie that I've seen like 50, 70 times just because I know it's going to happen. I can have it there. It's like a good friend. Yeah. So it just sparked that memory for me about that. So that's so true. And I'm sure everyone else does that. They have to, because it's like, who else are you going to listen to for an hour and a half while you're sorting your comic books or I don't know.
No, that's me. Like up until 1 a.m. trying to alphabetize all my comics. It's ridiculous. I can't, if I were to move my camera, I can't walk around my room right now because there's like 16 boxes of comics, like unopened toys. Like it's a problem.
Hi, I'm Gabe, and I have a comic book problem.
I'm a hoarder now.
We're gonna get you on the Hoarder Show. Well, the one thing that I did watch was on HBOMax, and it was the new Brittany Murphy What Happened documentary. Mm-hmm. And now everyone probably knows about what happened to her because it's such a tragic story and how she passed away at such a young age. I think she was 32 when she passed away in 2009. And yeah, the documentary really just highlighted everything that we knew, and they interviewed a lot of people that were covering the case at the time. They interviewed the coroner. Yeah. They interviewed like the forensic pathologist who did the autopsy, and they interviewed Brittany Murphy's husband, and not her husband, her husband's mom and brother, because the husband, of course, passed away 5 months after. Yeah. But it's just such a sad, tragic story. She was a delight to watch on the screen. Mm-hmm. And I remember from like Clueless, where that was like her feature film debut, and then to all her other stuff that she acted in. And it was just, it really was a life cut short.
Yeah, I was a really big fan of hers for Clueless, obviously. And then Girl Interrupted. There were so many good movies that she was in. The Ramen Girl. She was just definitely, I think, like she was gonna be like the next, big starlet. She already was in so many ways, but she was just gonna get that much bigger. And it's really sad. But I think the way she died apparently was due to mold and complications to mold, right?
Well, yes and no. So the way the documentary laid it out was they interviewed the forensic pathologist, and the lady said that they found no mold spores in her lungs. Mm-hmm. So they ruled mold out as the cause of death. So why they said pneumonia was that she had been sick for a while, and that she never got treated, and her immune system was down, and they found all sorts of prescription medicines in her, I guess over-the-counter stuff, and also prescribed stuff just to try and fight whatever illness she had. But had she seen a doctor a week, a day before she passed, she might still be with us today. So it really made me mad at the husband, because he was like, not to use the term loosely, but a Svengali of her. He really controlled every aspect of her life, from controlling her email, controlling phone, controlling who had access to her. And it just really, I don't want to say I was happy that he died 5 months after, but I think karma caught up with him.
Wow. Well, how did he
And
die?
similar circumstance.
Hmm.
He got sick in the house and he passed away there. So that's why people thought it was mold, because they did talk about that. But like I said, the pathologist said that there was no mold spores in her body at all. So
That's odd.
Science, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, with human nature, we want to sensationalize things and like, okay, was she murdered? Was it some sort of
right
insidious, some plan? But it's like, no, sometimes people just die and it's not like black or white. Sometimes it's not a clear cut case of, this is what killed him. And it's just like, it's sad, but it's not like an evil act. Like no one, it is what it is. So that's unfortunate. That's really sad. So.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know. It's just sad. Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing you can say about it. I didn't feel happy after watching it. I didn't answer like any of my questions really that I had about it, about her case. But it just really, it kind of leaned towards, just, I don't want to say painting the husband in a negative light, but just really showed the world for what he was and who he was. And I guess that her friends at some point had to try an intervention with her to try and show, look, your husband's a felon. He has all these arrest warrants. He has all this stuff. And she was like, well, I don't believe it. I believe Simon.
Wow.
And it's just, he really got into there and into her, under her head and in her head. And it's just,
unfortunate.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah.
But on a brighter note, did you see anything else that was maybe a little bit more uplifting or happy?
Yes.
What was that?
Well, I spoke about it last week. It was the TV show on Apple Plus called Acapulco.
Yeah.
Now, I think you finally got a chance to see it, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the show.
So something that was interesting is that I think people are saying, if you're a fan of what's the playlist show that people are comparing it to?
Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, because Austin Winsberg is also the showrunner for both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what the connection was. I thought that it was because it was like a musical show. So initially I was like, no, I'm not going to watch a musical show. But I was like, okay, let me watch it. Everyone's saying it's great. And I'm really glad I did because I went into it not really knowing that much about it. And it's such a fun, happy show. It's very, it has a heart. It's very funny. It's very bright and colorful. And for those that haven't watched it, it's basically the story of this very successful man played by Eugenio Derbez, who is on his birthday telling his nephew like his life story in a sense, and how he grew up in Acapulco in the shadow of this like great resort that was a beacon of hope for a lot of the people who were, maybe in poverty or maybe just not rich. And it was their way to like this glamorous, lifestyle. And through, some obstacles, he's able to get a job there. And then it's sort of how the plot plays out. And it's sort of like the coming and goings of this resort. The owner being like an 80s cheesy actress, the main
workout video.
Yeah, the main protagonist being sort of like this, like, I don't know if he's kind of goofy, but just like well-intentioned, like naive kind of young man who's starting to see the world for what it is. And his best friend who's hilarious. And his mom who like is sort of wary of him going into that industry because she thinks that it's like sin and, nothing good is going to come out of it. His sort of like feminist punk rock sister. A lot of really good characters, a lot of characters that kind of defy stereotypes, which I love seeing, like Mexican characters that are not like one note stereotypes. And so I really like that. One of the like sort of scene stealers are they have performers that sing Spanish versions of 80s songs. So the theme song, or I think kind of like the unofficial theme song, is Vacación, which is the Spanish version of the Go-Go's vacation song. And I just love it. It's so much fun, like hearing these pop songs sung in Spanish with like that Spanish twist, like a little bit of like the Tropicalia, rhythms and beats to it. And the two actors that play it like do a really good job of bringing that resort 80s vibe to the show. And they're sort of like I mean, literally the soundtrack to the show. It's available on Spotify, and I've been listening to it, and it's just like really great to hear these old songs from the 80s when I was a kid with like that Spanish twist. So it's a little bit different hearing it in Spanish, but it's a lot of fun and brings back a lot of good memories.
Yeah, definitely. I think every time the lounge singers, I guess for lack of a better term for them, were on screen, they stole it for me. They were like, that's where my attention went. I wanted to hear it. And when I saw that they did release the soundtrack on Apple Music and Spotify and probably other streaming platforms, I was thrilled. I was like, I can go listen to it. And every time I clicked next to the next song, I was like, oh, wow, they did this song. And then the next song came on. Oh, wow, they did this song. I was like, hey, Uptown Girl. I was like, wow, it's so cool, you know? And I was just like, just listening to them and just hearing knowing the songs the English versions of them, but then hearing them in Spanish, it took it to a whole different level. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool to hear that. And yeah, like you said, all the characters in there, they bring different nuances to the screen. And one of the part that had me cracking up the most was when the main character, Maximo, his sister and his mom went out to like a record store. And then they found that the record store owner used to be an old fling of the mom, but he told her, you can have any record you want on me. And the daughter gives the mom a Judas Priest album and said, oh yeah, it's like holy and stuff like that, because she was very religious. Yeah. And of course, you know, Judas Priest album is not going to be that. So it was I just laughed about that.
Yeah. On a side note, I see Rob Halford, or I used to see him all the time in Hillcrest here in San Diego. Did you ever see him in San Diego?
No, I couldn't say that I did.
What's that?
I wouldn't say that I did see him.
No, so you didn't?
No. I guess, yeah, I did not, just to be more straightforward.
I used to see him hang out at there's like a bakery right on the corner, like I think close to like Fifth Avenue that I used to see him a lot. I think he might have moved to Arizona, but anyway, I'm getting off track. But little side note of like San Diego trivia is that I used to see Rob Halford like hanging out in San Diego. But we're actually very fortunate to have had one of the stars of Acapulco join us on our podcast. And so we had Rossana De Léon, who plays one of the singers on the show, join us. And we had a little talk here. So why don't we go ahead and play that for our audience and listen to our conversation with Rossana.
We are joined today by an actress, singer, and someone who you might recognize if you're smart enough to watch Apple TV's newest hit show, Acapulco. We're joined by Rossana De Léon. Did I say that
Rossana.
Right? Rossana. Okay. Bienvenido.
Yeah. Thank
Welcome
you.
to the show.
Muchas gracias. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get started in acting? Was it something that you've always wanted to do? Was it something that, you just kind of fell into? Or tell us a little bit of your story there.
Well, since I was a little girl, I always said, and I always told my mom that I wanted to be a singer.
Oh, okay.
I told her I wanted to be, I was gonna become Britney Spears, the Mexican Britney Spears. So that's how it started. And then my parents thought, well, this is just like something she likes right now. It's like her little girl's dream, whatever. But then I kept growing up and it never changed. So I started dancing lessons and singing lessons when I was really young. At 13, I was already singing and dancing, like taking classes and everything. Nice. Yes. And then when it came the time to choose a career or what I wanted to like study, like go to school for and have a career, my mom told me that I should study music or something like that. And when I realized what it took, I was like, I don't think music is my thing. I don't know. It was complicated and it was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to perform and I wanted to become that's when I realized that acting was part of what I wanted to do, because I love being on stage and performing. So I enrolled into the performing arts. How do you say licenciatura in English? Like my career,
the institute or something.
Yeah, no, but like the high level study.
Okay, like the college or university or something.
Yeah. The university. I forgot the word university. Yeah. And I studied performing arts. And then that's where I met my husband, who's an actor as well. And we decided to move to Mexico City to start working on the business, like in a more professional way. And that's where I could like mix what I love doing, which is theater, musical theater, which was the first thing I did when I came here. I got to do musical theater, which involved singing, dancing, acting. So I was so happy.
Yeah.
And then I got to know the industry of movies and television here, because it's huge in Mexico. And I fell in love with it. I started working in casting as a side job, you know.
Oh, okay.
As an actor, you have to, I mean, instead of being a waitress, I was in casting.
And that's still in the industry. So, hey, it's the right way, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it helped me a lot. And I fell in love with the camera, which I didn't. I didn't have a lot of experience in that area. So it was cool. And that's how everything took me to Acapulco. I was like preparing myself for this.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. The show is a hit. We love it. I just have seen the very few episodes, but the thing that I love about the show is that it's just a fun show to watch. And your character in particular brings the music and adds to the ambience of the show. It takes place during the 80s for those of our audience members that haven't watched it yet. And so it just puts a smile on my face when I'm watching it. It's such a happy-go-lucky, fun show. And so congratulations for getting a really good role on it, where you can combine your love of acting and music. For those that aren't familiar with your character, tell us a little bit about her.
Well, the name of my character is Adriana, and she's one of the two singers who sing by the pool. And they were not written like we did them.
Okay.
Those two were like more of a background thing, they were musicians, and they were supposed to be like really into what they're doing, but not really good at it. That was the original idea. But then Rodrigo Urquidi, which plays Augusto, and I came together, and we were like, are they sure this is what they want? Maybe we should just think of something else that we know how to do. And he's a musical theater actor as well. So we made I don't know how to say it. We
made an executive decision.
No. That sounds too official.
Yeah.
We just made like
a creative choice.
A creative proposal. Like, this is like something we can do. And they were like, yeah, just try whatever you want to do, and we'll tell you if it works or if it doesn't. And the first song we recorded was True. And we recorded it. And then when we were shooting, we were like, okay, this is the moment they're going to actually see what we created. And we started dancing and making these faces and just like performing our hearts out. And I remember Austin Waynesburg, the producer.
Right.
After we were walking to our green room, and Austin Waynesburg turned to me and he said, "You rock. like to my face. You rock.
That's
and I was
awesome.
like, okay, so I think we did great. I almost fainted. I mean, it was Austin Winsberg. And
right.
I'll never forget that day. And I think that's why Augusto and Adriana became what they are now. And you have an official soundtrack, and it became just like a huge deal after Rodrigo and I got to work together and create these two characters, which were not thought that way, but now it's awesome, and I'm so happy.
Well, yeah, I've actually been listening to the songs on Spotify. There's the soundtrack is available. And again, for those that aren't aware, they're actually 80s rock song covers and pop songs in Espanol.
Yeah.
And I have a favorite, but I'm curious to know of the songs that you sang that you covered, is there one in particular that you kind of love performing or you love to record?
I mean, each time we had a new one, it was like, this one's my favorite. No, this one's my favorite. But now that I listen to the whole soundtrack, Walking on Sunshine was my favorite one, because the lyrics in Spanish and just the process of singing it in Spanish and making it my own, because I'm the lead in that song, it was so exciting, and people really loved it in Spanish. So it was great. It was so funny. But I don't know, Vacation is also on the top, because it's the song that represents Acapulco. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
That song, when I listen to it, I can't stop thinking about the Pink Hotel. So I would understand why people would love that one. But I don't know. Tell me your favorite one, Gabe.
So for me, I like you, I was listening to it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they covered this. This is the best one. And then I got to the next one. So at first, my favorite was Rock You Like a Hurricane. That was my favorite. And then I heard the cover of Twisted Sister, and that just took me back to when I was a little kid and, being rock and telling my parents, oh, I'm not going to take it anymore. So that's my favorite now, because it just reminds me of when I was a kid and, being a little, wannabe rock star.
That was actually the most fun I had when performing, because they were like, you have to go nuts, because I can tell you, because it would be a spoiler, but there's a purpose for each song.
Yeah.
So this song, when we go wild, there's a reason why. And so it was a lot of fun. Like, it was insane. Yeah.
Nice.
And that's what I really liked about your character and Rodrigo's character, is that the music is what really drove the plot and the storyline. So you guys are the soundtrack of the whole show. And like with this past episode that just came out, when you did Eye of the Tiger and the whole training montage, and that one it took me back to the Rocky movies, and it was just like my favorite of the moment is that one right now. I'll wait till the rest of them come out in the further episodes to find my new favorite, but it's just so enjoyable. I had a question about that though. How familiar were you with these songs in English before you recorded them in Spanish? Did you know it? Did you know them? Or was it just like you learned them in Spanish?
I knew most of them.
Okay.
One that I didn't know at all, that I'm surprised right now, since now I know it's really famous, is Vacation.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I didn't know it at all. I was like, what is this? And then in Spanish, it was like the words didn't make sense, but because they took some creative liberties to make the song sound as you would hear it in English. So in Spanish, some things don't make sense, but it sounds similar to the English version. So they kept it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know.
So for Vacación, that's what happened. It was like, what? I don't understand. This doesn't make sense. But then when I heard the actual song, I was like, oh, that's why they kept it like that. Okay. I understand. But most of them I knew. I mean, Wonderful Tonight was one of the songs that I was like, I can't believe I didn't know more about this song, because I knew it because of Friends. because of Monica's and Chandler's proposal, they danced to Wonderful Tonight, and it's like their song. So that's where I heard it from. But now I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't heard this song before. Like, listen to it. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, most of them I knew.
Cool. That is really cool. Did, I lost my train of thought when you started talking about Wonderful Tonight. I had a question ready to go. When you auditioned for the role, were you auditioning for this character? Was it like something, I want to be an actress, but hey, I know how to sing, or were you auditioning specifically for the singer?
No, for Acapulco, it was Adriana from the very beginning. Okay. I didn't know because what they sent us was not on the final cut of the show. Mm-hmm. We had a scene where Maximo actually like bumps into our music stuff and he disconnects some cables or something. And we were singing for Richie, who was supposed to be in one of the cabanas. So we get really mad at him and we're like, what are you doing? No sé qué. Divas, you ruined everything, get out of my face. But it didn't make the cut in the end. It was a very long scene, but it was so much fun because I understood where they're coming from. They really think of themselves as stars, right. Even if they're just singing by the pool with kids jumping around and like nobody cares,
Mm-hmm. They're playing to a packed stadium audience. Yeah,
exactly. Definitely. Yeah.
So I'm curious, in preparation for this role, did you go back and revisit performances of like some of your favorite artists? You mentioned Britney Spears. Is there any, Latina divas that you went back and watched and say, okay, I want to try to channel that into my performance?
I mean, one of the songs that we sing, which is Karma Chameleon, had a translation in Spanish that was made in the 80s. And Judy, she's a famous Mexican singer, made it famous. But we had to do a lot, actually, with our vocal coach. We had a lot of homework to do. Like, for this song, I want you to listen to this specific singer from the 80s. And we were listening to Mexican singers from Mexico, not from the States, so that we could like imitate in a way the style that Mexicans were listening to in the 80s. Nice.
Right.
And I really like that my parents listened to the soundtrack and they're like, this sounds a lot like Timbiriche was the name of the band. And I'm like, that's exactly what we were trying to do. So it was a lot of fun because the 80s were crazy. People did a lot of fun stuff and like they didn't think about it a lot. It was just a fun time and it was so much fun taking our like creative vibes into that world.
You say a lot of fun, and the show is a lot of fun. Was it as fun to make as it looks from the outside? It seems like the whole cast had a lot of fun together. Was it as fun to make the show? I mean, you were on the resort for 7 months, I think?
No, it was 3, but it felt like 7. Because we were in a bubble. We were quarantining. We were all together.
Gotcha.
I actually talked to Caleb, which was one of the guest stars in episode 2. And I was telling him, when we finished shooting, I felt like I haven't seen you. Like you came to Puerto Vallarta a year ago. It felt so long ago. Wow. That's how it felt, but it wasn't. And it was a lot of fun. We became a family. It was, everyone was happy to be there. There was actually the actors who came and they were just participating in 1 or 2 episodes. They were like, this is a fun gang. Because it was something weird for them. I don't know if it was the mixture because we were like Mexican and American actors together, and from Colombia, the actress who plays Julia is from Colombia. Rafael Cebrián, who plays Hector the Protector, is from Spain. So we were all very happy to be together, and a lot of cultures like mixing there, and it was a lot of fun. We were we enjoyed ourselves there, and we were very welcoming, like with the new actors coming. So yeah, it wasn't just like this, like it looks on the series. It really was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That's awesome. And so I have a question for you regarding musical theater. So as you're a singer and actress, is there a particular role that is like a dream role that you would love to be able to play? That maybe you've dreamt of, that, maybe it'll happen one day if we put it out into the universe?
I mean, not a specific role, but I would love to be on a Lin-Manuel Miranda show. That's that's the dream. I mean, everything he does is amazing, and I would love to be part of the world he creates. Where with Hamilton, it was like you can tell the story with such a diverse cast, and it's amazing, and he's telling it in a different way, and that would be like a dream come true for me. But a specific role, I don't know.
It's hard. There's so many roles out there.
It's hard. Yeah. I don't know. I would love to do a contemporary show. The classics I love, but I don't know if I see myself in any of them, in any of those.
That is cool. I mean, I have a musical theater background as well. So in high school, I was all in that. So yeah, I could totally see myself being in a Lin-Manuel Miranda's production. So if he's listening, hey, come on, you got two people right? We can do it. But mainly Rossana.
I can't sing. I'll promise to buy a ticket. No one wants to hear.
That's great. The support.
So what right now is in your what do you enjoy in the entertainment world right now? What are you spending time on or watching or listening to currently?
Well, Succession is out. Succession.
Season 3, yeah.
Yeah. That's obviously on my list. And I've been watching Sex Education, obviously the morning show, and Ted Lasso.
No, of course.
Which Ted Lasso is like out of the world. It was like when people started comparing Acapulco to Ted Lasso, it was like, what?
Wow, that's some high praise. Yeah,
exactly. That was insane to me because I admire that show so much, and people just, they're not thinking about it as, oh, Acapulco is this, like, the way I see it is something I worked in, so it makes it more real for me. And Ted Lasso is like, oh my God, Jason Sudeikis, it's like another world. So seeing them like together, and people, because Cristo, the actor who plays Danny Rojas, is actually doing things with Eugenio Derbez to like make Acapulco and Ted Lasso like a partnership, or I don't know.
Oh, hey, why not?
I don't know what they're planning, but it just became very real that we're like on the same platform, and people are saying that these two series are feel-good series, which with a lot of heart, and they're like very similar, and people saying like, if you don't know what to watch after watching Ted Lasso, go and watch Acapulco. And I'm like, oh my God. That's insane because I love Ted Lasso.
That's really cool.
Those are the shows I've been. I actually today I finished You.
Okay.
From Netflix.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
It's really intense, and I don't know why I'm so obsessed with it. But it's one of those like guilty pleasures. Like, oh my God, it's out. But yeah, that's not regularly my kind of show. But yeah.
Cool.
So what is next for Rossana? What are your next projects? If you can talk about them, or maybe give a hint on what you're working on.
Well, I've been doing a lot of auditions, casting. I don't know how you say it in English, because here auditions are for theater. But yeah, I've been auditioning for a lot of things here in Mexico. But mostly I've been working on things with Acapulco and for a huge transition my husband and I are making because we want to go to the States and work there.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's a very long process, and now I realize it's hard. So I'm really focused right now on getting those, like all the paperwork and the visas and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm auditioning. I don't have anything confirmed. I might be participating in a movie that's shooting on November, but it's not for sure yet.
Very cool.
Yeah. But I'm excited about moving to the States. That was like my dream since I was a little girl, but I think now's the right moment to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We need more diversity in Hollywood. So please come. We
need you do.
Mexicanos and Mexicanas, Latinas in the film industry. So once you get over here, I'll have your welcome party ready for you.
Yay! It's here, huh?
It's on film, yeah.
It's on film and it's recorded, so.
I'll make sure I'll hold them to that, yeah.
Okay, I'll be waiting for it. I'll let you know.
Excellent.
That is cool. Well, I think if you haven't seen Acapulco, they should probably pause on this interview, go watch it. Then we'll be right here when you come back and really enjoy it. And I just want to say again, thank you so very much for taking some time. I know I'm in Las Vegas, Gabe's in San Diego, and you're in Mexico City. So we're globally uniting here, at least in North America, to connect and talk about these things. So I think that's really cool. And I do appreciate your time spending it here with us to talk a little bit about yourself and what your motivation is and what's going on in the future. So thank you again, Rossana, for spending some time with us today.
No, thank you guys. I'm so happy I could do this. I've been doing interviews in Spanish for the show and whatever, and this is the first one I do in English. Oh, so yeah. I'm happy. Yeah. I'm happy that I did it because this is Acapulco. This is what Acapulco is about. Like sharing with the different, especially like the United States and Mexico, since we're like just around the corner. So now I dare you to learn the classics in Spanish. Now you have them, so learn them, because I've been singing in English even when I didn't know what I was saying. So now it's your turn to listen to Rock You Like a Hurricane and learn the lyrics in Spanish.
My family is going to regret that you said that, because I will be singing in the car nonstop, believe me. My poor dogs.
That's the magic. What do you think my mom thought when I was screaming out loud Britney Spears songs without knowing what I was saying and probably not doing it right? Well, that's the thing. That's the magic. So let's do it.
It was so great to meet you. For those of our fans that want to connect with you via social media, what's your Twitter handle? Are you on Instagram? Where can they see more of you?
Yeah, in all social media, they can find me as Rossana with double S, not double N, Rossana, Rossana De Léon. And that's how they can find me in social media. Excellent.
Well, thank you again. Yeah, thanks again, Rossana. Rossana, can make sure I emphasize that for you. Thanks again for joining us, and it was a thrill to be able to talk to one of the actresses and see the joy that they had when they talk about the show, because you could tell just by how much she enjoys talking about it. She really loved that, being a part of that show, be able to create that, and I think that's something special when people feel a passion for their characters or a passion for a project that they're involved with. It just emanates on their face, and you can see them light up when they talk about it. So I think that was really cool that she was able to spend some time with us.
Yeah, it's a fun show. She was a delight to talk to, really fun person. And so hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of great buzz around this show, a lot of comparisons being made to another of Apple's show, Ted Lasso. And so hopefully we get to see a second season and get to see where those characters kind of move on into the future. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see them kind of catch up in the decades, like 80s, 90s, 2000s.
That would be cool. Yeah.
So it would be really cool and to see that. So congratulations to Rossana again on the success of the show. And it's really, just another example of, this is a theme that we've been talking about within the last couple episodes of our podcast is, Latino excellence. And I think that this show exemplifies a lot of great actors, comedic talent within the Latino community, which kind of brings us to the topic of this episode of our podcast, which is sort of the end of our Hispanic Heritage Month focus, where we're going to be talking about sort of the legendary Latinx people that are making a note within pop culture as of today. We talked about past,
and going forward.
Right. Yeah. Some of the stuff that we grew up on, some of the people that we really enjoyed watching. And so let's go ahead and get into it. So who are some of the people that you wanted to highlight this episode, Danny?
Well, so some of the people I thought of for what's the future of Latinx influence in pop culture? And I wrote a couple of people down just because, I would forget their names if I didn't. And the first one is Jorge Guiterrez. To me, he embodies, he's the creator of Book of Life and also the creator of the new Netflix series Maya and the Three. And his style, it has that very cartoonish style in a way. If you've seen the movie Book of Life or trailers for Maya and the Three, you know what I'm talking about. And it's really specific to him. And I think he's one of the ones that's going to be leading Latinx or Hispanic influence into the future. Just his storytelling style, all that he brings to it. And I just really appreciate him, and I'm glad that I get to see some of his work.
Yeah, I think that people that create content for not just adults, but also for younger people have such a huge impact on the future because they have a whole generation of young people watching their movies and their shows. And that impacts their aesthetic, their perspectives, their view on art. And you're going to see people that are growing up watching his content, and then they're going to evolve in a different way. And that's going to be really interesting to see. One of the things or the people that I wanted to highlight were, the people that are really popular. I mean, I didn't go for anyone really obscure, but people that I really like. So one of the people that I wanted to highlight is Demi Lovato, who is Latina and is a Latinx person. I think that in recent years, she has really emerged as someone who has really great vocals. Initially, I didn't really think of her as a singer. I thought of her more as a pop star, but she's really developed into a really powerhouse vocalist. And outside of that, I think that I really respect that not only is she a pop star, but she is also, and let me apologize because I believe that that they go by they pronouns. So I apologize for using she, but to correct myself, they are an advocate for mental health, for being able to overcome drug addiction, self-care. And it's really powerful for someone who has such a big platform to be able to show their, weaknesses, if you will, especially within the Latinx community where mental health awareness is not, maybe something that is looked upon positively, that it's sort of a sign of weakness. To have Demi Lovato speak about it openly and honestly is really great. So that's why I sort of declare them as an icon for the Latino community, because they are someone that is very influential and not only talented, but really doing some positive things within the community.
I agree completely. I mean, Dancing with the Devil, that album is just fantastic. Yeah. And that's what I first really began to keen in on their voice was that.
Yeah. Who else was on your list?
Next up for me is Zoe Saldaña. Now she's actress. You probably know her best as like Gamora with all the green makeup on and everything, so you can't really tell that she's Latina. But she's also been in like Colombiana, which is another great movie. And she does the voices in both of Jorge Guiterrez's work, Book of Life and Maya and the Three. And the thing that I really enjoy about what I saw coming up for her was the spelling of her name, of her last name, which might sound, not that big of a deal. But if you look back at like Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Colombiana, or any of her past movies, it was always spelled Saldana, Saldana. And now with Maya and the Three, Jorge Gutierrez made it a point that she would have the Ñ over her in her last name. So now people can realize it's actually Saldaña. So they know that her roots are in the Hispanic culture.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that from both of them. And I really think she is someone that's going to be driving and carrying the mantle of the Latinx Hispanic into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that she's a very important actress, very talented. I love her work within the MCU. I'm excited to see what happens to her character in the new Guardians of the Galaxy. I would love to see her without makeup. I mean, she's in, two of the biggest box office movies, in Avatar and in Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's true.
She's in makeup, pretty much head to toe. So I'd love to be able to just see her beautiful face without all that makeup on, and represent, her Latinx beauty. But someone else that is on my list that is really kind of making the rounds today is Oscar Isaac and Pedro Pascal. And I kind of use them as a couple because they're like best friends. I just read a tweet that someone asked Oscar, if you could make a space movie, who would it be with? And he's like, oh, my girlfriend, Pedro, like we're sisters. Like that's my big sister. Like it's always Pedro. Like I love him. And I just love that they're like buddies and they're just really good friends. And, they're both in a lot of really high visible work for Disney. And they're just,
were they in Narcos together?
I don't know if they're in it together.
They're separate ones.
Yeah. Okay. But they're definitely like leading man material, and you don't really get to see a lot of Latino men play like leading roles within action films or, within films, period, I guess. So it's really cool to see them, becoming really successful in like Mandalorian and in Dune and a lot of really big, highly visible movies. So
don't forget, Oscar Isaac was in Star Wars as well. So they were both in a space movie, just in different maybe time frames within that universe. But it's really good choices. I would even group Diego Luna in there as well, but just because the Star Wars connection with him as well. For me, another performer, entertainer, actor, singer is Anthony Ramos. Now you know him from like Hamilton or In the Heights. He also has a new album that he released I think a month or so ago, and I think he is another actor that is going to be just the future. I really do. I think he is another bright star, and whatever he seems to touch seems to just blow up and go huge. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing what other projects he's involved with. So that's another one on my list is Anthony Ramos.
Have you heard his recent album? I think I brought it up on one of our podcasts.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And it's so good. It's like kind of like a throwback to like 90s R&B, which is like a refreshing kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say refreshing sound, but like refreshing in the sense that it's like different from the music that's being released, in pop music right now. So it's just kind of a fun record to put on and listen to. So I agree with your assessment. I think he is a really talented young Latino actor. So just to kind of name some other people, we mentioned earlier from Acapulco, Eugenio Derbez. He's sort of, he's already above icon status. I think that a lot of maybe Caucasian Americans or, Americans don't really know about him, but he's a box office, powerhouse in Mexico.
Phenomenal.
He's, been in a lot of movies like Instructions Not Included that have made a lot of money within the United States, and now going into Acapulco. He's just someone that is, I think, similar to like Tyler Perry, someone who is going to produce and direct and create more opportunities for Latino actors moving forward. So he is definitely up there. Someone else that is also kind of doing more work behind the camera is Eva Longoria, who is, I think, directing her first movie, and it's going to be about, I think, the man that like created Hot Cheetos, which is like a really interesting story.
Nice. Yeah.
And she also did like Devious Maids on Lifetime and a couple of documentaries. But she is someone who is going into like a power position. I think that like actors is like being an actor is sort of the glamorous side of like Hollywood industry, where you're in front of the camera, like that's where you get all the attention. But like a lot of times the power is really in like the producing and the directing aspect of it, and being able to create more opportunity for people within the community. And I think that that's what she is also doing. And so I applaud her for that. She's someone that I really respect. She's not only is she like gorgeous, but she's also extremely intelligent. I think she graduated with like from USC. So she's a really smart, intelligent person who is representing her community really well. And then lastly that I want to mention is Salma Hayek, who has been a mainstream in like pop culture. She's made so many good movies, but she's coming out with The Eternals, which is, there is a caveat, like she's not really portraying like a Mexican woman because she's an alien or an Eternal. But to have a Mexican actress portraying a character within the MCU universe is like a big deal. It looks like it's going to be an amazing movie. Like the sort of first response to people who have seen it are saying that it's like amazing. And so she, again, is like an icon. I love Salma Hayek. She is, again, someone who's producing, directing behind the scenes, also, and is like a really power player within Hollywood, especially like as a woman and as a Latino woman. She's overcome a lot of obstacles, and I really respect her.
Yeah. She is fantastic. From all the movies that she's made, Frida, going back to From Dusk Till Dawn, going to like Desperado, and and going forward with everything that she's done. I remember, was it Fools Rush In with Matthew Perry, that little rom-com movie. And it's just, she is such a talented actress, and you're absolutely right. She is fantastic.
Yeah.
The final one on my list is, we talked about him in the interview. Someone that I'll mention again because hopefully now he's listening is Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think if I could be anyone else, if I died and came back as anyone else, I would want to be him, because he is just so creative. He is just so talented. From In the Heights, Hamilton, Moana, Mary Poppins Returns. What else is there? The new one, Tick, Tick, Boom, which tells the story of Jonathan Larson, the gentleman who created Rent, and it just tells his story that's coming out soon. He is just so great. And I think that any list that involves Latinx or Hispanic creators, he needs to be at the top of it. He really does. And I am so glad that we get to enjoy his creative genius, because there's no other way to put it. He is just a creative genius.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to respect his creativity and the opportunity that he's provided for other people of color within the industry. The diversity that was within Hamilton and In the Heights, and really reflected in all of his work is really commendable. That like as he becomes more aligned with Hollywood, that he doesn't turn his back on the community and like start casting like an all white movie, starring him. So that I really respect him as well. I'm using the word respect a lot this episode apparently, but it's true. I really do look up to these individuals because they've accomplished a lot. And it's not an easy task for, people within the Hispanic or Latinx community to be able to overcome the obstacles that are in front of us to become successful in the Hollywood industry. So props to all of them. And
yeah,
I definitely, there is one other person that I think that we can now share that we're going to be interviewing, and that's Terry Blass, who is a writer within the comic book industry. The comic books industry is like really having a boom when it comes to diversity and representation. You see a lot of superheroes that are people of color, that are LGBT, that weren't necessarily represented in such large numbers in the past. And that definitely excites me as a comic book fan, and definitely seeing myself reflected in the pages of comics is amazing. It's something that I never really even dreamed that would happen. And you see it in his comic book Reptile, and also in a lot of his other work. I just finished reading his graphic novel Hotel Dare, which I really recommend.
That sounds phenomenal
in our special interview with him. But we also, you had the opportunity to talk to someone who is a scholar and professor in the world of comics.
Right.
So, why don't you go ahead and introduce that conversation, Danny?
Right. So you mentioned Terry Blass, and his most recent work that's going to be coming out on November 10th is Marvel Voices Comunidades. So it's Hispanic Latinx characters, and I think it's an anthology of like 4 different stories from 4 different writers. But the introduction to that book was written by a scholar by the name of Frederick Luis Aldama, also known as Professor LatinX, or as he would call himself, Professor LatinX, which I think is really cool. So I reached out to Professor LatinX to chat with us about what the future was, or where he saw the state of Latinx superheroes in mainstream comics, because that's the title of one of his books that he's written, over like 36 books, I think. So let's go ahead and let's welcome Professor LatinX to the show. This is Dr. Frederick Luis Aldama. Welcome to the show, Professor Professor LatinX. How should I call you today?
Let's go with either Prophet X or Professor LatinX or Professor LatinX, if we want to go like
Professor LatinX. I like that.
But yeah, thanks, Danny. Daniel, PopCultX. I'm so happy to be here. Let's do this.
Yeah. So just to give people a brief overview of your background, you're professor. You're actually the chair of the humanities, founder and director of a Latinx Pop Lab for the University of Texas in Austin. You're the adjunct professor, distinguished university professor at the Ohio State University. Oh, sorry. It's called the Ohio State University. I think that's how people refer to it. You teach courses on Latinx comics, TV, film, and departments of English and radio, television. And at the Ohio State University, you're also a distinguished university professor in arts and humanities. You're a distinguished professor of English, a scholar, alumni there, as well as a recipient of the Rodica Balderman Award for Distinguished Teaching and Mentoring, and the Susan M. Hartman Mentoring and Leadership Award. That's quite a list. I think I could keep going on.
Yeah, no. Thanks for even going that far down the list. I usually stop at like my name, and but yeah, no, I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to be in Austin, building the Latinx Pop Lab, teaching comics there, doing Latinx pop culture and as a graduate seminar. Yeah, all the things that I love. I mean, can you imagine, Daniel, here I am, like, the things that I love to do in my free time and that have had a huge influence in me as a person. I get to like teach
Wow, yeah.
and get paid for it.
That's the icing on the top of the cake there. I mean, it's something you love doing, and I could, if you like me, and if it's a passion of yours, you love to tell other people about it. So here you are getting to teach that. That is just so awesome and so wonderful. And tell me a little bit more so you were born in Mexico City, is that correct? Is that what I read?
Yeah,
and then you moved to California as a child. Do you think that's really shaped your curiosity into Latinx pop culture? Has it been something that's been the main driving force of that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Daniel, because actually, I mean, you see it today as well as you did in my generation, but the pressures to assimilate are just huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
very true.
Yeah, you can talk a lot about that, right? I mean, and so sometimes we have to claw our back into that space of like who we are. And, sometimes for some of us, we have to wait as long as college, like sometimes, right? Like those courses in college that you're like, what? Like with your last name, you're like, where did that Z go in Juarez, and like, I'm going to go find this out now. I have time. And there's someone like a teacher has been kind of like woke me to my Latinidad. Well, like, moving from as a kid from Mexico City. So my mom is Irish Guatemalan American, and my dad's Mexican from Mexico City. When she brought us back to California, it was because things didn't work out with my dad, and she saw the way we were treated at school, and that's when she's like, I'm going to go and put myself, even though I've got a couple kids that I have to raise on my own now, I'm going to go to school to become a bilingual ed teacher, because I don't want this to happen to not just my kids, but other kids, right?
Gotcha, right.
So there was always that really strong sense of her strength and leadership, and then finally as a teacher, kind of role model in my life. And we were never, when I came home crying because the teacher told me that I wasn't Mexican, I'm like, what's up with that? And I was really upset because she was really aggressive with me. My mom was like, no, you're Mexican, don't let anybody else tell you how you self-identify. And that kind of stayed with me. Like, don't ever let anybody else tell you, Daniel, how you self-identify. Now, we may be, light-skinned, mixed, the two, both of us, right? We have ancestry that's mixed. We're both light-skinned. But you know what? We identify the way we identify, and nobody else can tell us how that's going to happen. So, it's interesting. Like when I got to college, there was no doubt, like, I'm Latino, I'm Latinx, which came later, of course, but I'm Mexican, I'm Guatemalan, all of those things. And someone told me, a fellow Latino student, like, you're not Latino, you're not Chicano enough. And I'm like, please, like, I get it from the white people, and I'm getting it from the brown folks. Look, just like, don't tell me how my life and who I am. And I'm not doing that with you. It's funny. Sorry, Daniel, but this has raised so many things. In the piece on Marvel that dropped on Friday, which was super awesome. It's like, I know you got a lot out of it. But there are so many in the Twitter sphere, so many Latinos that are like, why are you saying Marvel or Professor LatinX that we should be identifying Latinx? I'm like, I never told you that that's how you should self-identify. Right. You can self-identify whatever you want. Martian, for all I care. If that's what you are like feeling, if that's your soul, I don't like, I'm not imposing any of that stuff on you. I would never do something like that. Find your power, where your empowerment, where you most like feel grounded and most feel like your soul kind of echoes and speaks to,
Yeah, definitely. And that I did see that Marvel piece, and that is what attracted me to you. Is that, and I did see some of those comments, and so I know what you're referring to. And you're absolutely right. You never said anything. That's just how you feel about yourself, and that's how you want everyone to do. Just go, how do you feel about yourself? And I appreciate that, because it's been a struggle for me to figure out where I want to identify as. And I read a comment recently that went said that don't see yourself as half Mexican or half Russian, Jewish, whatever. You're wholly Mexican and you're wholly Russian. And once I've thought about that concept more, it is true. Just embrace it wholly, and I'll be so much better for that.
Absolutely. It is, we need to speak from where we come with confidence and joy and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And that is like from where we come, exactly like you just said. And, when we start to feel hesitant and we are unsure, then we're not role modeling for future gens in the way that we should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. And I'm glad you brought up future generations, because I think is one of the topics, or one of the ideas I had for our conversation was, how do we see ourselves being role models for those future generations, especially as it comes to pop culture items, as we see like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the DC version of it, as they try and do their best to get on par with Marvel. Where do we see that shift of those film houses becoming more inclusive intentionally? Or is it something that's saying, oh, we have to jump on board with this? Or is it, do you think it's just something that's naturally going that way?
Yeah, that's a great question, PopCultX, Daniel, because, there are people on the ground in Marvel who care, who are woke, if we're going to use that term, who are making a difference. And in fact, Marvel's voices is a result of that.
Yeah.
So if I can give a shout out to Angelique Rocher, she's the kind of genius behind, really like pushing that out into the world and diversifying our superheroes in this really concerted way, concentrated way. There are others like her. Now, to your other point, however, is the bottom line here on the part of like Marvel executives, Marvel profit kind of margins, money? Yeah, of course it's money, right?
Right.
But does that mean that what's produced is any less significant or valuable? Maybe not, depending on what we finally get. One of the comments that was that I made in that interview for Marvel, and Robin was brilliant. I love, the way she kind of, steered that interview, but was, and we didn't have space to keep it, but was, where is our Wakanda? Where is our, Michael Pena and Ant-Man and the Wasp, he tells, there's that moment when he's like, where's my superhero costume? Like, Michael Pena as Luis, as our Latino on the big tent, big Marvel MCU screen, we want to see him as our protagonist, our superhero, right? So yeah, I love that. I love that line is there. And I guarantee you Michael Pena kind of like put that in there. So that's the big question. Yeah, we still don't have our white tiger. Right. We still don't have our America Chavez. We don't have our Ghost Rider. I mean, yeah, Ghost Rider appeared in the TV series very quickly in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., little things like that I mentioned in the interview, but we haven't had our Wakanda moment.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. I didn't even think about that we haven't had that people can look and say, hey, that's me, that's us right there. Yeah. Hopefully soon we'll get those on the big screen. I think America Chavez I think they have plans for her coming up in like maybe Doctor Strange too.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So,
we'll get that.
it's, I think that another way to look at this, Daniel, is, I don't want to say that there's necessarily chronologically a progression toward kind of better representation from, like, I don't know, if we go back to, the 70s to today, but, they're ruptures and then they kind of accumulate. And then I would say that, yeah, we're seeing better and more complex and more interesting stuff out there. But the more money that's involved tends to mean that we have a little bit more constraint on innovation and kind of the way Latinidad is reconstructed in the mainstream space. So TV, we see with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and other TV shows, Runaways, Disney Plus platforms, that kind of stuff. We see more representation consistently, but we're still not seeing it in the big money stuff areas, right? The big money areas. And of course, Disney knows that with Coco, when they do finally put us up on the big screen and when we finally have our outfits, and when we are finally the protagonists of the superhero story, that we will not only go, we'll be taking our families, and our families will go, and we'll be going back again and again. And that's exactly what happened with Coco and why it was such a huge success, right?
Very true. Very true. So you brought up Coco, and I'm glad that you did, because my next question for you is, so stepping aside from like the superheroes a little bit, with creators such as like Jorge Guiterrez, who's the creator of Book of Life, and like the new Netflix series that's coming out, Maya and the Three, which is deeply inspired by like Mesoamerican art, have the streaming platforms, Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and Peacock Network, and the list goes on. Do you think that's allowed for Latinx creators to basically expand their wings more and to show the world our culture and art?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Book of Life. I love Book of Life. And I'm so looking forward to Maya and the Three. I loved El Tigre, I think that Jorge Gutierrez, in form and his aesthetic and his style, is really innovative, and also in his content and the storytelling. But yeah, I mean, I think, we're seeing like Saved by the Bell, the reboot. I love that show. It's on Peacock. And one of the reasons why I love that show is that, we have a Latina who is, the protagonist. She's the one who's like timeout, controls the narrative. There's a little bit of tongue in cheek. It's smarter. It's like really smart TV. And usually if you peel that back, you see that there are Latinos in the writing room. There are Latinos, Latinas, Latinxes, as showrunners, as producers, as creative directors. Same thing with, Mr. Iglesias, same thing, with a bunch of the stuff, even One Day at a Time, Hentified, all these things that have been coming out, Vida. There's so much but we still have struggles. We have challenges. We have challenges getting into those writing rooms. Still today in the 21st century, 2021. But you and me and other audiences are not willing to put up with it when it's garbage.
Yeah.
So true. I think that's one of the big differences. We know what's good. We've seen it. It's out there. And now we're like, we're not interested. Like, don't service more of that stuff. That's like, it's like another Speedy Gonzalez, really lazy, careless kind of storytelling. We want the good stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. I completely agree with that. Are there any stories from like maybe growing up from Latinx folklore or stories that you grew up hearing that you would like to see encapsulated in either comic books or films?
Well, so this is my kid's book. It's called The Adventures of Chupacabra Charlie.
Very
And
cool.
and that was one that I wanted to see, you know. I'd heard from my grandmother about the chupacabra whenever
Right.
our chickens and stuff were attacked and killed. And it was always like chupacabra was for me always a little like a monster, like a mangy, kind of overgrown mangy cat, you know, that had fangs and would, you know, eat our chickens. And, you know, I'm like, hold on. When I was a kid, I started reimagining the chupacabra as like a superhero. And
That's cool.
I called him Charlie, and he didn't have an Impala that you know is featured here, but he did have a Hickenbocker when I was a kid, and he would fly around and kind of save the world. And so I returned to that. So yeah, I mean, I think we're doing it. There are many of us who are going back to stories that we've heard as La Llorona, Chupacabra, you know, Kukui, and we're kind of reimagining them in a contemporary moment for, you know, our kids, for teens, for us adults. And yeah, that's where we're like, a lot of our superheroes are kind of grown from that space. You know, I'm also thinking of people like Javi Hernandez and his El Muerto. You know, that superhero dies and goes through his journey of the underworld called Mictlan.
Yeah.
And comes back out, and also kind of a superhero figure, Rody Montijo, and, you know, his stuff. I mean, there's so many where we're going back and creating a bigger mythology, bigger mythos than just those drawn from like Norse mythology, right? Like Thor and stuff. And yeah, we have all that and we're doing it. So we're not seeing the big money like Marvel and stuff, you know, going there, but we're doing
it. Which is probably the way to get the story told right at first, is to do it ourselves and have those creators who grew up with that tell that story and get it out to the world at large first.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather get it right and put it out there than have someone kind of screw it up. And that's kind of where we go back to Jorge's work and El Tigre and Book of Life and his Maya and the Three. He's very careful about the way he weaves into his plots, his stories, his characters, our deep mythologies, our more proximate cultural kind of rituals and heritage. And, you know, that makes a difference. You know, it's also why in the end, when Coco finally, like the people behind Coco were like, oh, we better get a Latino co-director on this, and we better bring in consultants that are Latino so we get it right. You know, I saw the story before. I even saw like some of the animatrix like storyboarding, and it was like terrible. But then, you know, you had Lalo and Humberto and others involved in the consulting, and they're like, no, you know, we're gonna, you know, we're here. We will make sure you guys get it right. So, you know, they are listening now, but yeah, you're right. It has to, you know, it's like, I remember that time when Chris Rock at the Oscars was like, come on, you guys, Oscar's so white. Like, you walk out your door in LA and it's like brown people. It's like, why, how is it so hard for you all to get it so wrong when all you have to do is like talk to your neighbor or, you know, talk to someone at the grocery store, you know? So yeah.
That's very true. That is very true. So if people wanted to learn more about you and even pick up some of your books, I know I'm interested in like two of your books that you wrote, which was the Real Latinx's in representation in U.S. film and TV and Latinx superheroes in mainstream comics. Those really just popped out to me out of the many of the, I think, over 36 books that you've written or edited so far. Where can our viewers go to learn more about you? Do you have like a website or is it just like your Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, everything's pretty much like goes back to the handle Professor LatinX.
Okay.
So website Professor is what, Professor LatinX, Twitter handle, Insta handle, all that stuff. So yeah, that's like kind of easy, real easy way to find me and my work. Yeah, those were really great, like kind of passion projects, but also really important scholarly books, because so many like you, Daniel, have kind of like, wow, I had no idea. And thank you, kind of like for systematizing and for kind of digging into the archive, and also giving it a certain kind of cultural, scholarly weight and respectability, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought when I started reading the Latinx superheroes and mainstream comics. I was like, wow, this is more than just a fluff piece, so to speak. This has impact to it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing reading that. So
awesome,
thank you for all that you do. Thank you for taking that Professor LatinX banner and running with it. We truly appreciate it. And personally, I do, because you're someone who I can look up to and just follow and say, hey, that's where I want to strive to be. So I really appreciate that you coming on here and spending some time with me today.
Well, thanks, Daniel. And gosh, yeah, you've made my day. So thank you, and thank PopCultX.
So yeah, that I don't want to toot my own horn, but that was a great interview. And it's very, I think it was very insightful, at least for me, getting to speak with him and getting to speak with an educator who gets to talk about his passion for a living and teach other people about what it means to have Latinx superheroes. And I think it's really cool. And I think the books that he's written provide a sort of like a wakefulness to the community. So it's not just, oh yeah, it's just comic book writers. There's no real serious education about it or educators. But here he is. He's written these college levels, I wouldn't call them textbooks, but college books on the subject. And he's written some about, real Latinx in TV, movies, pop culture. And he really brings that sort of gravitas, I guess that's the right word, to the scene. So it's not just pop culture anymore. It's also into the next level of being a cultural icon. So I was so glad that I was able to talk to him, especially for me, because I've struggled with my whole identity in the Latinx community, and we got into that a little bit, and it was really insightful. So I'm glad that I was able to do that. So thank you again to Professor LatinX for taking some time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job talking to him and having that conversation. I think that, like you said, it's important for us to understand the importance of comic books and graphic novels, and to limit it to, the work or work that is made for children is kind of silly, and even if it was just made for children, I think it's still important. I mean, it's super influential to the formation of children's minds and their perception of the world. So it's really important for us to make sure that we have those works reflect our community, and I think it's so uplifting and it's so inspiring, and really hopeful for the future that we're seeing so many characters emerge from Marvel, DC, all the independent publishers, and it just seems to continue to grow. Hopefully, it won't be few and far between. It'll be major series of books that are out that have Latino, Latinx characters, and we see more movies, more toys, more shows on Disney Plus, all of it. I can't wait to see what the future holds, and it's really exciting time right now.
It really is. You're absolutely right, and the future is bright for Latinx storytellers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're the largest minority within the United States, so it's time people start paying attention to us, and yeah, and it's really entertaining. Like, it's really good content that's being published. So it's not just like a quota that's being filled. It's like really good content that is being created, and it's entertaining, and it's fun to watch and to read. So I recommend people to go out into the comic book stores, support all the Latino creators that are, representing right now.
Speaking of which, yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but you said support the Latino creators. So John Leguizamo is coming out with a new comic book called HBOMax, and that is super exciting to me. I was reading about it, and it just looks so interesting. And I think him and I want to say Todd McFarlane, he did the cover for the first issue, and they like came together to create the character of HBOMax. So that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
As a non-comic book buy, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, John Leguizamo is great. I mean, I think we talked about him in our previous episode about Latinx people that we grew up watching and influenced us. And so it's kind of cool to see him evolve into the world of comic books. I'm really excited to see what he can come up with. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Like, go to your local comic book store and not only support the store, but look for, the Latino Latinx books that are out there, because we need to speak with our dollars and we need to support them so that, Marvel and DC continues to make more opportunities for people and continue to publish those books. If you want to, need some help, go back and buy issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Reptile. There's a really great run that is written by Terry Bloss. You can also check out his graphic novel Hotel Dare on Amazon. And then there is the upcoming Marvel Voices Comunidades. It's really hard for me to say, which will be coming up with a forward from Professor LatinX himself. And I think Terry actually wrote a story in there for one of the characters that he created as well. So a lot of good stuff coming out. Go out, buy it, support him.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And scene. We're over. I think we could end it right on that and everyone would applaud. No. But I think, so support all the Latinx creators, whether it be in comic book stores, whether it be supporting the films, clicking on or watching on the different platforms of Latinx creators, and just going out there and supporting them. I mean, you'll learn something from it. You'll enjoy it, and you'll be the better person for it.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
Well, I mean, even like not from this like altruistic point of view, like it's fun and it's entertaining. Like it shouldn't be a chore to go and like support a Latino person that's like writing a comic book. It's a comic
Mom,
book.
I don't want to.
Yeah, like
right.
It's good. It's fun. It's like no different than any other comic book that's like enjoyable. It definitely is probably from a different perspective than what we're used to, and that's good. That's like a breath of air.
That's a good thing.
Right. And it's revitalizing the industry. So with that, I think we can close out this episode of PopCultX. This has been episode 30. Thank you so much for listening to us and for listening to the conclusion of our Hispanic Heritage Latinx Heritage special within the last 3 episodes. Keep your eyes and ears open for a special episode that we have with an interview that we did with Terry Bloss, writer of Reptile with Marvel Comics. That will be coming at you very soon. And keep an eye and ear open to our social medias as well: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. Any last words for our audience, Danny? Make it really profound.
No. Really profound. No, I will just say, if you have a ghost story that you want to share, contact us via our social media or go to our Anchor podcast page and you can submit a message there. We want to share your ghost stories on our next episode. We're doing like a little Halloween episode because, I think it's the next episode will be the one before Halloween, if you're keeping track of dates and whatnot. But it's going to be a scary ride, I hope. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, look forward to seeing you guys there. Look forward to seeing all your likes, seeing your feedback, seeing you share, because we do it so you guys can enjoy it. Even though we enjoy talking about it, but it's nice to know that you guys enjoy it as well.
Thumbs up.
So stay safe, everyone.
Bye.